and I wanted to be able to have the women speak for themselves, and that's why I wrote each one of them in the first person, because I wanted them to come alive in their own words, so to speak, even though I was the one who wrote it. And I was very inspired. I've always been very inspired by the Spoon River Anthology by Edgar Lee Masters. I don't know if you know that
I
book.
know that book very well. I had to do a lot of monologues out of that book.
Oh, well, then you know,
Yeah.
and again, I knew it from our acting class because we performed a lot of those monologues. But I love the fact that there were first person characters talking about themselves and their lives and who they were. And I wanted for the same thing to happen with these women.
Hey, Common Sense, thank you so much for joining us today. I have the sheer pleasure of bringing back someone who I adore, and his name is Gabriel Reyes. He is the president of Reyes Entertainment. They are a PR firm that specializes in Latino product and Latino people, and he is a brilliant Latino. And without further ado, Mr. Gabriel Reyes. Hi, Gabriel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Nicole? Thank you. I'm sorry. How are you, Lydia? Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm so excited to be back with you.
Oh, I am thrilled. First of all, a couple of weeks ago, I was scrolling down Facebook, and Elia Esparza, another person who I just love, was sharing your book.
That's right.
And I was like,
Thank
wait,
you,
what?
Lydia.
What? So I rushed to call you and say, we have to talk about this. When did you write these books? We have to talk. So you have two books out. One is called Time Travelers, A Vampire Story.
That's right.
And
Right
the,
here.
yes, and the other one is called Grace, Glamour, and Grit.
That's
And,
correct.
and so let's talk about, first of all, and the illustrations to the books are amazing.
Thank you.
They
Thank you.
are, they were just delicious, just to watch. You know, I said, these are kids' books. Kids would love these books. They're
Thank you so
just so
much.
well done. So first of all, what made you decide to take a to step back from PR and do these books? Not that you step back, but you know, they say, okay, I want to write a book.
Well, as I wrote in the foreword in the books, it was really the pandemic. It kind of hit us all like a ton of bricks in March, and I, like many other small businesses, lost a bunch of business, and I found myself with all of a sudden I had all this extra time, and of course, dealing with whatever clients I still had left and dealing with keeping my business going. But at the same time, during the pandemic was just such a and still is a time of high anxiety. And so, I meditate, I exercise, I do a lot of things to help with anxiety. But drawing and painting has always been therapeutic for me. And for many years, I've had all these pen and ink drawings just sitting around. And so I decided that I would go back to them. I would revisit them. I would repaint them. I would colorize them. I would compile them into some, cohesive storylines, and then I would write stories to go with those illustrations. And so I first realized that I had made a lot of drawings of women, in all different types of women in different situations. So I decided to create a book about powerful women, which has always been a thing for me. I feel very like my feminine side is very strongly developed, and I feel a lot of empathy for women. And so I decided that I would pay homage to strong, powerful women with this book that I called Grace, Glamour, and Grit, an illustrated anthology of powerful women. And so I set about to put it together, and just in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep, it all came together, and I went on Amazon, and then I realized that I had also created kind of a vampire story also pen and ink drawings. And so I went back and colorized that and wrote a story around it. So it was a great therapeutic exercise, not just in the art, but in the writing of it. And I've always been an avid writer and reader. So this was a great therapeutic moment.
Well, Traveler Time is perfect, for Halloween, and it's just a great story for little kids to, you tell the little kids, because again, I cannot tell you how beautiful the illustrations are. Your drawings are just gorgeous, gorgeous. I just loved it. I was like, oh my God, he's so good. He is so good. And with Grace, Glamour, and Grit, I thought this is a great book for young girls. This is so empowering for. I wish I had a book like that when I was a little girl. It was because you cover all these women, Latina, Black, African. You just take us around the world with these women, and the again the drawings just add to the story. It's like wow, and I could just see, if my daughter was small, she's a grown woman now, I might still read to her, but it's great for little. Yeah, it is a, it's not that it's not an adult book, but when I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, this is just wonderful for 8 to 12-year-old girls.
That's right. I did. I really thought about that a lot, and I wanted to be able to have the women speak for themselves, and that's why I wrote each one of them in the first person, because I wanted them to come alive in their own words, so to speak, even though I was the one who wrote it. And I was very inspired. I've always been very inspired by the Spoon River Anthology by Edgar Lee Masters. I don't know if you know that
I know that book very well. I had to do a lot of monologues out of that book.
Oh, well, then
Yeah.
And again, I knew it from our acting class because we performed a lot of those monologues. But I love the fact that there were first-person characters talking about themselves and their lives and who they were. And I wanted for the same thing to happen with these women. But I also wanted to make sure that I wrote a wide swath of experiences and personalities. A Japanese geisha, a Chinese concubine, an African queen, Nefertiti, the Egyptian queen. I had a mad woman in a madhouse. I have a Mexican woman who's trans. So I wanted to really cover not just nationalities, but cultures and life situations that women may come up with that are just fine, and they should be empowered for being that way. And I wanted to celebrate that.
Well, I think you've done a spectacular job in doing it, because it's a quick read, but it's very, very powerful, very profound, it just like wow, this is so just so well thought out, so well put together. And again, I can't say enough about your art. Your art is spectacular. It's
Thank you so much.
Well,
really
when you know someone through another field or doing something else, and then you see their creative expression showing up in another area, I'm always tickled when I see somebody else showing up in another facet of their art.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's always been, all throughout my life, I've been a very curious person, and I've always had a lot of thirst for knowledge and an ability, not a perfect ability. I'm not a perfect artist. The art is not perfect. I think that's part of its charm, that it's a little bit imperfect, because I don't have any art training. I just like to do it. The same way that I studied dance and I do ballet, even though I'm 60 years old. My writing and other kinds of things that I like to do that are part of my personality that maybe a lot of people don't know about me. So I'm glad to share it now and share different faces of who I am.
Well, I just salute you, because you make us proud,
Thank
Gabriel.
you.
You make us proud.
Thank you so much, Lydia.
You had made a comment in the beginning about this being a really stressful time and anxious and just heightened
Yeah.
uh,
Anxiety.
mental stress.
Yes.
How do you calm yourself down? What do you do for yourself to like center yourself?
Well, I do several things. One of the most important things I do is move my body and exercise. That's always been my go-to because throughout my life, I've been a person that is high strung, and I experience anxiety. And so throughout my life, that's always been my lifesaver, as I call, is exercise. And that's why I've always exercised. And I remember even as a child, in junior high and high school, always exercising, always running. It was something that was in me, and it continues to be in me. That's why I like to take dance class. So that's one. The other one is I do meditation and deep breathing. And meditation I've always done, always. Well, in my adult life when I discovered it, and I continue to practice it and try to perfect it for myself. And I take myself through what I call the truth technique, which is so many of us live in the past or the future. We're always thinking about what happened or what's going to happen, and a lot of times we're not in the present. And so I try to work on staying in the present and taking myself to what I call, my friend calls the truth technique. And that is, I say to myself, okay, what's happening to you right now? Are you safe? Yes. Do you have enough to eat? Yes. Do you have a home? Yes. Are you healthy? Yes. So I give myself all those blessings to think about, all those things to be grateful for, and it allows me to then relax and not feel so stressed out. So much of the time that we feel stressed, we feel as though there's impending doom and there's something about bad that's going to happen. And most of the times, that's not even true. It's our mind that keeps taking us there. So really, a lot of what it's not really mind control, but it is. Where you try to take yourself and take your mind into a sunnier place, into a brighter place, into a more thankful place. It's work, but you do it, and it turns out that it helps me.
Well, I don't know that it's mind control as it is mindset. It's just setting your mind to think this way as opposed to that way.
Right.
It's saying no, we're going. That you're making choices, and you're
Correct.
telling your mind these are the choices we're gonna take.
Correct.
Yes.
And it's about practice. I saw this one guy on YouTube asking, "What do you practice every day? What do you practice?" Because whatever you practice, you're gonna get really good at, and then that's how you're gonna see the world. And so I see a lot of people practicing dissatisfaction. And so when you practice dissatisfaction every day, no matter what happens, you're going to be dissatisfied because you've already fallen into that practice. So you're going to get $1 million. And if you're practicing dissatisfaction, you're going to complain about your tax bill. And you're going to see the downside of having $1 million. So I try to practice, feeling positive, feeling optimistic, and use my imagination to create my life circumstances, because our imagination is what creates our life. What we think and who we think, what we think we are, that's what we are. What we think about, that is the experience that we create. But that's all imagination. And most of the times we're imagining without focus. And so when we imagine without focus, our mind and our imagination goes to a dark place. And then we end up unwittingly creating dark situations. So practice, control your imagination, practice imagining optimistic circumstances, positive circumstances in your life, and the universe will grant them to you because you have imagined them. So that's what I try to do.